University students across the country are preparing for another possible national shutdown if the Department of Higher Education imposes fee increases at varsities. And the talk in the varsity circles is that inflation-linked fee increases are an imperative. Otherwise, these institutions will be forced to cut back on spending and may have to lay off lecturers. According to the Department of Higher Education, student debt has almost doubled from 3.6 billion rands in 2012 to 5.3 billion rands in 2014. Implication is that the debt is spiraling out of control. The Commission of Inquiry into Higher Education, set up by President Jacob Zuma, is at this time consulting through public hearings in an effort to test the feasibility of free higher education. The final report is expected only in May of 2017. In the meantime, the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, is expected to make an announcement about fees before the end of this month. The spokesperson of the Department of Justice, which the commission is under, is Musa Ndwandwe, who joins us to discuss the progress that's been made up to date. Musa, pleasure to have you with us on the show.
Pleasure to be invited, thanks.
And, it's like a detailed story that I told there, and I know that we miss a lot of information. Firstly, I'm curious to know why it's the Department of Justice that is overseeing these hearings and not the Department of Higher Education itself.
Yeah, I'm the spokesperson for the Commission,
yes,
not the Department of Justice.
Right.
Yeah, it's housed within the Justice Department because it's chaired by a judge, lawyers are involved, advocates.
Yes.
So that is the nearest department in terms of the personnel to service the commission.
So it's like seconded type of resources that have been seconded to the Department of Higher Education.
Certainly, and they do have relationships with law firms that they can consult for private services. So the Department of Justice, I think, comes in because of that. Otherwise, it is fully involved in looking at issues of higher education and training in the country.
Okay. Now, we will be talking about what the Department of Higher Education says, what they want to do, and so forth. But let's stay with the Commission for a second. The hearings so far, how many have been held, and who are you listening to and talking to?
Okay, before the hearings started, the public hearings, the Commission had started its works through receiving a lot of written submissions from stakeholders. So even before that, there had to be an intensive engagement process with all relevant players, we including universities, students, government departments, government agencies, the private sector and civil society at large. After that, we invited written submissions. When those submissions had been processed, a structure then was, we came up with a structure on how the public hearings should go. And the first of the public hearings was in Pretoria on the 10th of August. We then went to Vanderbijl Park. We are going to Nelspruit in the coming weeks, but the point is we'll be doing it all over the country so that the public can have a chance to be part of this very important debate.
The end goal is to check the feasibility of providing free university education in the country. Is that the main objective?
Yes, the statutory mandate demands of us to find ways of, or to answer the question, is it possible, is it feasible for this country to fund a fee-free higher education and training sector?
But in the meantime, you've got to deal with the immediate situation, isn't it? Because the students are demanding that there should be no fee increase for 2016.
Yes, I think it's a public education issue. Our mandate does not require of us to intervene or to make any determination on whether fees are increased. That is the competency of the Department of Higher Education.
Yeah.
But because it's the same environment, we've had to answer a lot of questions around why are now fees about to be increased, even though we must put it on record that the Department of Higher Education has not announced an increase. But we do find a lot of questions around that. Our role really as the commission is to look at long-term solutions. We're not looking at 2017 and what will happen there, but we're looking 10, 20, 40 years to come, so that the issues of funding in the higher education and training sector are stabilized. We know that there is policy. We won't react to events and issues as they arise, but all things are based on sound policy. This is the role of the Commission of Inquiry.
But here's the point. I mean, in the meantime, the students are threatening to embark on a shutdown of all universities unless the department gives them direction of whether fees are going to be increased or not. And there's talk that at some universities, they may even have to lay off the employees, the lecturers, that is. So what is the latest that you know of this story? When is the minister likely to announce on this matter?
Yes, unfortunately, I can't speak for the minister, but we are aware of the issues because, remember, all the people that are involved, all the players are our stakeholders. We have had engagement with them and we continue to engage them. In the hearings, they are the presenters and the commissioners are interrogating whatever positions they are putting forward. We are aware that universities have always been complaining of a fall in their fundings from government. So they are very particular about that, and they think it will start impacting on the quality of education itself when academics find other ways of making money. We know students have made their point in the streets, and they base it on valid positions that you can't expect people to pay for education if they are poor. So the whole issue of inequality in society is being ventilated within this commission. All we can say to them is, even though all points are being considered and we think they are important, we will need time for this one to be the lasting solutions. We are aware that 2017 is around the corner, but unfortunately we cannot help in that situation. What we can promise, though, is that when the final recommendations are presented to the president, they will definitely have looked at viable long-term solutions.
Let's look at the different submissions that have been made to the commission itself. I mean, you know, there probably are a whole number of issues to be considered and have been raised by the stakeholders. If you can talk me through a few that come to mind.
Of course, the first public hearings we've just had are just an overview. After that, we will look closely into issues, and the issues, the whole post-school education environment. What is the landscape like? Which are the majority of students? What are the groups that form the majority of students, and what are their profiles? We'll also look at the funding of institutions, the streams of funding. We'll also look at funding of students themselves. After that, we can look at the content of this demand, the fee-free education. Does it talk to tuition fees only? Does it talk to transport, accommodation, recreational costs, because that all goes to the cost of education. Then we will go to the alternative sources of funding, you scanning the global environment to see where there's been best practices and how can those be adapted to the South African situation. Then we look at the implications before we can then say it is feasible or it is not. So it's a formidable task. This is why it's not possible to have one meeting and then declare whether it's feasible or not.
Are you looking only at universities or are you looking at colleges of further education and training as well?
It's the whole post-school environment, so training is a big part. We understand that the Department of Higher Education feels particularly passionate about training, vocational training and technical education. So we're looking at TVET colleges as well, and their management forums are part of the commission.
The engagements that you've had with the students, of what quality, and the South African, the Union of SRCs, right, that engages with you, to To what extent do you influence the decisions that must be taken by the Department of Higher Education in terms of the student demands? Firstly, the interaction that you have as a commission with the students, and secondly, to what extent you can act or influence the desired outcome from their point of view?
Yeah, they've been part of the commission up until maybe the first public hearings. The South African Union of Students have officially expressed dissatisfaction. They misunderstood the mandate of the commission. They thought we could intervene and stop the fees being raised for 2017 particularly. And as we have continually expressed ourselves, this is the mandate that lies somewhere with the Department of Higher Education and Training. But I think as a presidential commission, we make recommendations, even if we haven't sent the report. We do try and highlight these red flags and say it would have been better if those things were attended to so that it doesn't impact on the credibility of this commission, because we believe it's among a few ideas where this issue of funding can be finally put to rest. So we want it to continue without unnecessary hindrances. So the relationship is not as cozy with the students at the moment, but they are part of the commission. They've sent their written submissions. We base all recommendations on what they've presented.
Yeah. Well, again, the general desired outcome is that we should have a free university education system in South Africa, right? And the commission is investigating that. I'm not sure if you have any preliminary views of whether that is a viable option or not in South Africa.
Well, it is early days. We are sure of one thing, though. Everyone who comes to present suggests that there needs to be reform in the way university and training is funded at the moment.
Yeah.
So whether they are government, they think there needs to be some way of finding the money. Whether it's university councils and vice chancellors, they also feel there needs to be some reform. So in a way, even though they are at opposing ends, all our stakeholders tell us that a recommendation should talk to a serious reform in the way things are structured currently.
Well, we're talking about money and payments on fees and so on. The quality of education at that level, is it something you're looking at or not really?
We have to look at that. We have to also look at the institutional autonomy. Academics are guarding that jealously. They don't want any reform that we propose to impact negatively into their space in terms of making decisions that are crucial in the running of these institutions. So this is another reason why we have to extend the focus from merely looking at is it feasible. We have to look at all social, financial, economic, and all other implications.
Musa Ndwandwe, thanks very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much for the platform, Baba.
And speaks on behalf of the commission that's investigating the funding models for university education in South Africa. A very complex issue, and that is why their task continues until May 2017. But in the meantime, the debate is around fee increases for 2016, and the Department of Education, Higher Education, expected to respond. And it is anticipated that they will not be imposing any fees, even though universities are saying unless they get an inflation-linked increase this year, they will not be able to run viable institutions or may end up having to lay off some of their employees, particularly the lecturers, the academics themselves. Let's wait and see what happens over the next few weeks.